Hip politics, baby.
All of the burning and bombing that was done to us and the houses, nobody never said too much about that, and nothing was done. But let something be burned, by a black man, and then my God. You see, the flag is drenched with our blood because you see, so many of our ancestors was killed because we have never accepted slavery. We had to live on it, but we've never wanted it. So we know that this flag is drenched with our blood. So what the young people are saying now, give us a chance to be young men, respected as a man, as we know this country was built on the black backs of black people across this country. And if we don't have it, you ain't gonna have it either, because we gonna tear it up. That's what they saying.
We're gonna tear it up. Oh, and that's the words of
What they done to us.
look what they done.
The late great Fannie Lou Hamer. She's a native of Ruralville, Mississippi. She, yeah, she's from the SIP. She is a civil rights maven. Folks who don't know her should definitely know her. She actually started the Mississippi Freedom Democratic Party. She led a delegation of Black Mississippians to a Democratic convention in the 60s and actually petitioned the Credentials Committee to seat African Americans as a part of the Mississippi delegation. Prior to the Mississippi Democratic Freedom Party, the entire Democratic Party in the state of Mississippi was white, and white oppressionist, if I'm being like 100% clear. And so Fannie Lou Hamer, who was once a slave, then a sharecropper, galvanized folks from the community and led a delegation of folks to petition for a seat for Black folks to actually have a seat at the table within the Democratic Party. So there you go.
And with that knowledge, that's a cool cold open, and it is appropriate for the times. Welcome to another episode of the Hip Politics Podcast. You got your boy, Mr. Cameron Calvin Trimble, aka Mr. 216 to the 202, aka Mr. Hip Politics, aka stand up right now because we can't sit down. And my guest today on the podcast, I had to get my sister on here. A front line, she's on the front line of the movement constantly. She currently works at the Democratic National Committee as a senior advisor to the chair. But she's held many positions throughout her career. She was actually our first ever guest on the podcast over a year ago. Yeah, you were. You were first person we did a guest. We didn't get footage of that, so I was like, well, and I want you just on regularly because you're, like I said, you're in the know, and connected to so many people. Miss Waikinya Clanton. Waikinya, what's up? How you doing?
Hey Cam, hey Hill Politics fam. Thank you for having me back. I'm excited. You know, we've been together for the vast majority of the day, and it's been
We're gonna get to that. We're gonna get to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I ain't gonna tell you
What she was cut out the bag. Like, yeah, this podcast, this is coming right out. We just our country is reeling. I would actually say that I saw Trevor Noah of the Daily Show. He had a Facebook video, I think that came out either yesterday or today, that really, really was like, well, very articulate and very well thought out. Just it seemed like he just sitting talking, but connecting the different dots about why we are at the state we are of protests all around the country. Just before we got on the podcast, one of my boys sent me from Chicago, sent me video of like, it was mostly white people actually fighting the cops and pulling people off. Like you got protesters, people in the street in New York, LA, Houston, ATL, and of course Minneapolis, due to the unfortunate and the just flat out murder of George Floyd, which was just, it became a tipping point after, and after, we've been in quarantine for what? We've been in quarantine and lockdown for
like 3 months, a little bit over 3 months.
Yeah, well, almost, yeah, close to 3 months. And I think it's just, and I don't know why. Maybe it's just the guy that me was hoping for the best. That like, all right, man, everybody's in the house. People, like, there's got to be, violence should be ticking down. We shouldn't be worried about some of the racist things that are going on. And then you start to see Asian Americans and Chinese Americans get kind of be a lot of different racist and things and being attacked. But I mean, we needed if any time we needed a break from some police brutality, it would be now, as we're just kind of dealing with so many other things in real life. But it just seems like it keeps coming. The Ahmaud Arbery, which came up, even though that happened in February, and just so many different Black bodies that keep getting killed by people. It just almost feels like it's open season. I think this George Floyd just touched on a whole new nerve, because I mean, we already had so much pent up aggression. We seeing Black people die a mile a minute from COVID-19. It's not hitting everybody the same. We're close to what, 20 to 25% of the country has filed for unemployment over the last 2 months. So people are out of work. People are trying to look for their next meal. The frustrations are beyond real. And I think it just boiled over. And I think one protest turned to another protest, turned to fires, turned to tear gas, rubber bullets. I mean, they're throwing tear gas right now. A couple of people just checked in with me now that they're throwing tear gas, setting fires near the White House, but cops are getting hit with stuff. Cops are firing back with rubber bullets. I mean, it's happening all over the country. And then then you got 45 Agent Orange in the White House talking about when the looting starts, the shooting starts. Like, damn near trying to incite a race war, riots and so forth. And I just wanted to have you on because I know how active you are, like I said, in the political world, in the community world. I know that is kind of your bread and butter, especially dealing with all things Black, especially with all things Black women. And I just wanted to, just have a conversation around that. Yes, for everybody on the pod, today we had the Black Lives Matter DC, because I'm here trying to do the right thing and be quarantined and socially distant. So I came back to my home in DC and we created a new podcast studio for everybody who's watching here in the crib. But I mean, I couldn't sit by, and I needed to get footage of this. I wanted to record this. Like, this is something that making sure we see this and see the outpouring of support, see how many that we're not going to stand here for injustice. And so Black Lives Matter organized a peaceful mobile protest where they organized cars to kind of ride through the city in protest of cops killing Black people. I mean, there's no other way to say it.
It was a car caravan.
Yeah, it was a car caravan. And that's where, and Waikinya, thank you for posting that, because I saw it, but it popped up like on my feed, on all of my different feeds from you, and I was just like, and you I think you actually texted me, like, you coming out there? I was like,
yeah. Yeah, I mean, so the protest in DC started last night, and I most recently injured myself, so I couldn't go to the march. But then I saw they were doing a car caravan. I was like, bet, was like, bet. I might not be able to walk and stand and do a lot, but what I can do is, roll in solidarity with the rest of the people who are just as outraged as I am. And, Cameron, I think you touched on it a little bit. We've been, for those of us who work in, multicultural workspaces and who work in different industries that sometimes put restraints on how like involved you can be, you know what I mean? And it kind of forces you to rethink your activism in some way. This time for me, you know, and I've shown up differently in each one of the protests and each one of the marches, but this time I felt so compelled to be vocal, be more vocal than I had been before. And I think it's honestly because of something that happened to my brother on Mother's Day Eve. He was getting off for work. He had stopped by the gas station to fill up his truck, and he got in his truck on his way back out. There was a car in front of him that started swerving in the road. And so, you know, we live in Mississippi, so, you know, the road was dark. So he just said, I'm just gonna go ahead and get around her. You know, I don't know if she's drunk or what. And he sped past her so he could go home. Well, the lady follows him to the house. And so boldly, yeah, right. And not only she followed him to the house, but she was bold enough to get out of her car, come under our garage, right? Turn back around and then go around to the front door of our house. She didn't go all the way to the door. She kind of stopped like
y'all house? She could have got shot.
Correct. Or she, even worse than her getting shot, she could have killed my whole family, you know, because it's a very tense environment that we're living in this country. And to have my brother, who's a 21-year-old man, you know, really be running for his life because the woman followed him home of all places. You're bold enough to follow someone to their home. And I think, you know, for me, it sent a signal that we are no longer in normal times. Whatever normal meant for us, we are no longer there. We're a long way from that place now. And so it was like the stress of that and then having to have the talk, but this time in a much different way. It wasn't just about what to do when you get stopped by the police. This was more about what to do to make sure you make it, like, get to somewhere safe. And sometimes home isn't the safest place for you. Sometimes the safest place for you is the police department, you know, and like really having to talk to him through what to do when you're followed. Because if you looked at the incident that happened in Georgia with Ahmaud Arbery, he was followed by civilians. Like this wasn't a case of, you know, police officers gunning him down. These were radical, racist white men who thought it was hunting season in Georgia, saw a black man, saw a buck, and anyone who hunts knows what a buck is a deer. And for those of us who have historical context, you know that black men during enslavement were referred to as bucks, as deer, as game, meaning that they were fit to be hunted. So, you know, having to have that really like stark, harsh conversation with my brother and then having to build him back up from that point was a place I never thought I would have to be in, but realized that I needed to do because we were just in this climate from Ahmaud Arbery, and then turn around weeks later, we got Breonna Taylor, and then weeks later, now we're here with George Floyd. And it's like, as Black people in this country, we are safe nowhere. We're not safe at work. We're not safe at church. We're not safe in the park. We're not safe in our own homes, in our own beds, in our own rest. So it is a bit of a stressful environment to be operating in. And I think for me, when I think about like what called me to this moment and why I have been so leaned in this moment, it was because if I was being honest, I had become numb to it. Because if you,
I think a lot of us, I think to your point, a lot of us have become numb, because it always affects me, but it's kind of like you got to I've never been numb.
You have to compartmentalize it. You do.
Yeah.
Because we have to exist in spaces with people other than ourselves, right? So like the hurt, the pain, the anguish, the anxiety that we feel every time hurt and harm is afflicted upon one of our own, we can't always react to it, right? We got to think about how can we act in this moment. And it's always about remembering all the lessons that we were taught over the years, whether we were learned it in school, we learned it at home around the kitchen table, and try to figure out how do we still function. And I think it was slowly putting us all in a state of depression, and we were becoming functioning depressed people.
That's an interesting, I guess, an interesting phrase or interesting terminology. Functionally depressed, because I can see that. To that point about compartmentalization, like compartmentalizing kind of the pain and the focus. Like for me, I mean, yeah, this is election season, so this is like our Super Bowl All-Star weekend, all like, I mean, all in one this year, as we're just trying to encourage so many people to be counted and get voted. I mean, and vote. And it's just busy season. Like I feel like we've been working from home, and I'm like, after that first week or two, it's like I got more work now than I did when we were in the office. And I'm blessed, and I'm not complaining about nothing, because I'm glad I didn't lose my job. I'm still getting paid.
Exactly.
We're actually taking on more clients, and people are coming to us more, and our work is needed because we work with so many different progressive groups and so forth. But that same time of like, I think just over time, everything, when you all these different Black police killings, and I Can't Breathe, just over the years, you protest, you start to see different cops get off, or you see them get lighter sentences. You start to see so much that's you start to see so much that is kind of going crazy, and you almost put it in a place like, at least for me, you put it in a place like, that's happening, but I'm gonna get to it later. I gotta get to it later. So for this week, I actually turned off my social media. Like once the George Floyd happened and I read about it, I still haven't watched the full video. Obviously I've seen the pictures. I know what the video shows. And I was like, I just don't even want that video image embedded in my brain, so I can't unsee it. And I had to turn it off for 2 days and just check a couple of headlines. And I think that's why I came out to protest today, because I only started checking back in last night, and like nothing but my feed. Everybody I'm following, like all the Black people I'm following for the last 24 hours, Black and white people. And so I just felt that need to get out there. Now, question. Why do you think we have gotten to this point of protesting like so violently in so many places around the country?
Well, I think it's just like, Fannie Lou Hamer said, this is a signal that people are tired. They don't see the institutions as they currently exist as institutions that are designed to benefit them. They see it as a symbol of what this country really values, which is capitalism, which is currency. They don't see their value in those, represented in those places that they have decided to burn to the ground. They don't see them as staples or pillars of their community. They see them as, in some form or way, as an insurgent. And so that's why I think you see the outrage. And I think, like, again, Fannie Lou Hamer said it best. She was like, what the folks who are rioting are expressing is that if we can't have it, you can't have it either. And I also, and I subscribe to that in some way, but I also subscribe to Dr. King's quote when he says, rioting is the language of the unheard. That's how people are releasing all of this stress. Like we talked about stress and anxiety and tension. People literally are out here trying to figure out, how they make it from 1 minute to the next. That's not a comfortable feeling. And I think the people who look on and they condemn rioters, and in most cases, most of those people are not even there for protesting. They're there to cause anarchy in those communities, and they are not from those communities. But, I think.
Right there, because there's that. I feel like I want to stop you right there, because I feel like that's been something that's been people are trying to promulgate it in the sense like, oh, these are paid protesters, these are paid rioters. I do think, I mean, I saw a story out, there was some undercover cop who was like one of the first people to be throwing something up in Minneapolis. And
yeah, breaking the windows in the auto zone in the Black community.
But a couple things. Rioting, looting, protesting, standing in the streets, cussing out cops, whatever form it takes. The whole idea of protesting is that there was a social contract and I was playing by a certain set of rules and thinking that you were playing by the other people in our society or the people you have that social contract with were also playing by the same set of rules.
Mm-hmm.
But once you consistently show me, especially the people in power, the people at the top, the most onus is on them to set that standard and set that example that they
and
are
to honor it.
And when they don't, and continually don't, it's like, well, why do my protests need to fit into your world and your contract when you are the person that's promulgating this violence against me and you breaking that contract, so I don't need to hold up to it either. I don't advocate for looting. I don't advocate for like hurting other people and destruction, a destruction of property. And I really don't want it to happen. Don't do it in our own communities. Like if Black people are rioting, like don't go protest and riot in our communities. Go to the police station, go to City Hall, go to the communities where the people in power who we have a focused gripe against. That's where we need to go. I think Killer Mike just did. Killer Mike and T.I. were on with. They had a press conference yesterday with Mayor Keisha Lance Bottoms, who I'm holding out hope for is going to be the VP nod. That's who I really want. Senator.
I have no comment.
I know, but I'd love to have a vice president named Keisha. Like, yo, you thought Barack was black? You thought Barack Obama was a black name? But anyway.
Stop baiting me.
No, I'm just kidding. But I'll say this to say that you just said he's like, I'm mad as hell. He identified why so many especially young people, but so many people and frustrated people want to burn stuff to the ground. But he's like, we don't need to be going into our own communities. We need to fortify our communities. This is the time to really be plotting and planning and strategizing and fortifying our communities and demonstrating in front of the people who are taking the power, who are trying to take the power away from us. But everybody's not thinking that hard. Like you said, there's some bad actors that are, when one or two people see something going down, oh, well, now I can throw fireworks. Now I can go say something.
But I also think there's a communication gap. Listen, I think after the 60s, we thought it was over. You know, justice had been won, freedom had been fought for, like we were good. That was the assumption, right? And on a number of different fronts, right? Then you saw the emergence of the Black Panther Party, then that became a thing. So I think we've seen a couple of things happen throughout the course of history in our country. But when it came down to the education behind a lot of those protests and a lot of those demonstrations, most folks were limited to what they learned in school, right? Unless you had someone directly on the front line who passed down that knowledge, that real knowledge to you from generation to generation, you lost a lot of the essence behind those movements. And you also lost a lot of the tactical structure. So when we talk about the protest and everything else we saw televised, no one televised the meeting because there was no Twitter, there was no Instagram, there was no Facebook, right? So the way in which the strategy, the development of strategy, right? The convenings, the meetings, we're gonna meet over here, we're gonna go over here, this is a safe house, that is a safe house. None of that has transcended into this movement, right? All we know is jump on a conference call and we're gonna say we're gonna meet up this day at this time and this is how we're gonna, exercise our First Amendment right? No one sits down and says, and I think part of the problem when it comes down to trying to convene people is that we got too many chiefs and not enough in it, right? Everybody want to be the one. Everybody want to be the thought person, this leader, this letter, that letter. And that's fine. Leadership is needed, but also we got to set tables where everyone has value, equal value, right? Everyone comes here and everyone talks about what it is that they think that this movement needs and it requires. Everyone talks about what our goals are collectively as a people, right? And sometimes that's absent of outside influence. And it just gotta be. I hear people talk about coalitions all the time, but sometimes Black people just need to be able to be around Black people and be Black and say what we gotta say and organize accordingly, right? And then there's an appropriate time.
I gotta challenge you there, because the protest we were at today, I dare to say, was at least 50% white, if not.
But you didn't let me finish either. Okay. I said there's an appropriate time to bring in allies. But when you're talking about tackling systemic racism, when you are talking about issues that disproportionately impact Black people differently every single day, right? Whether you are silver spoon or no spoon, those are various competencies that have to be brought together. When you start talking about organizing, right, you understand everybody's going to organize different. Everybody's going to be a part of this movement different. Some people are going to finance. Some people are going to be lawyers. Some people are going to work the hotline. Some people are going to be in the march. Some people are going to be drawing. Everybody has something that they can contribute to. But I think there's too much disconnect. And I think there's still a level of classism that is being forced upon our movement that won't allow us to work collaboratively. Like, I think that is a real thing. And I also think it's because we're not getting the response that we want, because people don't see it as strategic, they see it as tactical. And when you see things as tactical and it lacks strategy, then you said then it doesn't have vision, right? And I think as a people, we have to come back to the table. Like, after all of the protests and the marches are done, who is reconvening the table? Where are they reconvening? Like, what is the space, right? What is the space that people are coming to? And I think that may have to be a regional or geographical division in that. And then, bring it back to one big table. And I don't know if that is CBC where folks do that at. I don't know if that is the Black Millennial Convention where folks do that at. But I do know we need a place. We need a gathering spot, because that's what we don't have. In the 60s, they had safe havens. They had two blue collars. They had churches. They had all of these, backdoor, backyard, into the swamp places where they could go and meet and everybody knew about, right? But we don't have that. We don't. We get on a call and it gets convoluted with things that don't really matter. It doesn't serve the mission or the goal. So I think we have to become more strategic and less tactical in some of our approach. Not all of it, because I think all of it is needed. A movement requires movement. It requires people to be doing something everywhere. But at the same time, it also requires strategy.
I think to your point there, yes, it does require a strategy. And because I think about this a lot. I've been thinking about this for years now. And you always hear, like, where are our Black leaders? Where is our Black leadership? Who are our new young Black leaders? I think it's so much more complex than that, because I think we have a ton of leaders. But a couple things. One, we're a lot farther economically, quote unquote, as a people. At least we feel like we're a lot further, because if you look at the stats, we're still so far behind. But now more of us, like the things that were universally affecting all of us, we all had to live in the same neighborhood. So you had in the 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s, up into the 70s, you had, due to redlining and us just literally getting out of Reconstruction and Jim Crow laws, like throughout, like whether you were a Black doctor, a lawyer, or you were a day worker, we were all living in the same communities. But slowly over time, we were able to, people, due to college education, being able to kind of creep into the middle class, it started to compartmentalize and create division in the sense, well, let me get out of this neighborhood. And so now you don't have the more affluent Black people living next to the like middle class or even working class or even working poor. We're not all in the same blocks and same neighborhoods. Then on top of that, it's like you feel like you got something, so you don't want to lose it. And so more and more people became complacent. because it's not like police haven't been killing us. It's not like we haven't been being discriminated on so many different levels this entire time. Like, this has never stopped. But now, as different pieces of us and that talented 10th, we get out the hood, and then then they start the crack laws and the drug laws, and the war on drugs starts with Nixon and kind of goes and then takes a whole nother level during the 80s with Reagan. Then you start locking people up and throwing away the key for so many offenses. So that's fracturing our families and our neighborhoods. Then you got the effects of drugs and so forth, and then TV and the internet came, and it created a new world and a new ideal for people. Because now I think, and I'm getting back to your point of like, when you say a bunch of chiefs, and no, you mean a bunch of everybody want to be a general and nobody wants to be a soldier, in the sense that, because now it feels everybody wants to quote unquote be a star. I want to get likes, like the whole social media, and that being a reinforcement of like your importance, how many followers, how many clicks, being on TV. People weren't caring about being on TV during these 60s and 70s movements. If anything, they don't want to be on TV because then they become a target. Then the police, Ku Klux Klan, your job, all types of white people could come at you. But now people want that spotlight and feel like, oh, I'm on TV. Like, there's a different value system that's been placed to that. And a lot of people want to be there without having the strategy, without being able to have the foresight. Like, I'm pretty sure most of the people who want that fame don't want to lose their job. And like, how many people willing to sacrifice? Like, yeah, you can stand up, but you might get fired or you might get let go because you know what I mean? Like, people don't want to risk that. I mean, I'll be the first to admit, like, that's something I had to struggle with at first, in terms of like learning how to speak my truth and learning how to stand up for stuff. But knowing that I spent 6 figures on getting degrees, and I gotta at least pay that back.
I gotta pay the people back for.
I gotta keep money flowing in, you know what I mean, and building for my future. But at some point, you realize, like, what am I here? What was my purpose? Like, I got to stand up. Like, I've been given all these blessings so I can stand up, because we ask the people who have nots, and the people who are still in the hood, or people who are still being extra. Like, I mean, I definitely deal with racism, but I'm not dealing with it like I was when I was a child in the same neighborhoods. Like, we've been able to make more money and move out of those scenarios. But that's where still the majority of so much of our brethren of our brothers and sisters are. And they're on the front lines of dealing with some of this, like, overt racism. Like, that societal contract is broken every day. And then the worst part about it is that we only get to this point when it gets to the most egregious level. Like, people gotta die on camera for us to even believe any of this. What about all the people who get knees in their necks that don't die? Like, what up? I mean, when the jump out got, like, exactly, like, jump out. I remember. Yeah, I remember in DC maybe a few years ago, the Jump Out Boys got me. I don't know what they were thinking I had or didn't have, but I was riding in a friend's car for whatever. Oh, this is before I had a car. So yeah, that was about 6 years ago, maybe 6, 7 years ago. But I mean, they pulled up on me, threw me, and I was I didn't have a suit on, but I had a button up and like khakis, like very non-threatening, but got pulled over, thrown up, like, you know what I mean? This is over not too far. Tossed my whole car and was like, dang, man, this ain't happening since I was a kid. And like,
but listen to me, you just made a huge assumption. You just said that you were not threatening, right?
I thought I wasn't.
Right, but guess what? Omar Jimenez, he showed us on Friday what non-threatening can get you: handcuffs. He was literally there on duty.
The CNN course.
Yeah.
First of all, I'm like, why are y'all handcuffed? He's clearly a reporter with a whole
but no.
And everything.
It's showing you. It's your exact point. He should not have been in handcuffs. He should have never been arrested, but he was. Why? Because he black. He was black. He Afro Latino, but presents very black. Very black. There was no shade of white up in that boy. Straight black. His colleague, who was a block over, he was stopped and asked for his credentials. He showed him and it was fine. This man on live TV told the cops, "We're broadcasting live. I'm with CNN. Here are my credentials."
I watched the video and I was like, what?
Homeboy was like, "Nah, you under arrest."
Like, what cop? Come on, have some discretion, bro. Have some discernment. Like, not
you are under arrest. You are under arrest. You are under arrest. You know why? Not because you black, period. There was no other explanation. He didn't break any laws. He moved. He asked, well, what is a more comfortable space for me to be in? You know what? Don't worry about it. You're going to jail. It wasn't insubordination. It was not interrogation. It was none of that. It was literally, we don't believe you. Your blackness is not verified. We don't believe your blackness. We don't believe black people work for CNN. On live TV.
That was such a... And you know what it also showed me? It was like, you could have, I don't know if his cameraman was white or not, but it's like, you can have because a lot of people think if I got the camera up, like they're not going to...
The cameraman, the producer, all of them were white.
And that didn't save him. All right, so I want to talk solutions. I want to talk... What do you think... When I say solutions, because the officer was arrested yesterday, just the officer who just not all four, because there was 4 officers that were fired, not just the officer that need Mr. Floyd in his neck and killed him. He was arrested and charged with 3rd-degree murder, which I'm glad he was at least charged, but let's see what kind of sentence he gets, because if he gets another 2, like that woman down in Texas, that cop who got like less than 5 years for going in the wrong house and killing a guy, murdering him in his own home because she was drunk and having sexting with another cop and came in and didn't realize she was not in her own apartment. I'm curious to like how this prosecution is going to go, because they've already started laying.
They're going to beat it down. Cameron, the prosecutor has a history of not prosecuting police. This cop in particular had...
I think that powder keg, they have a risk of igniting another powder keg. And it does.
He don't care. He don't care. He does not care. They don't care. Okay? They do not care. This man had 18 different complaints against him, and he still had his job at the police department. 18 of them.
I thought 2 would get you kicked off, but I guess not.
Not in Minneapolis.
So let's talk solutions, because I want to know if people need to protest, especially I think part of the protest is also we've been cooped up for so long. It's like... I
don't think that.
No, I think no. The reason, hear me out. Hear my explanation.
Going under that. I think what's going on is that people are tired of dying.
Yes, but here's my explanation. I'm not saying that isn't what sparked it, but I think when you have time, because me being home alone, unfortunately, but me being home alone here in the house, day in, day out, it gives you more time to think, gives you more time to be in your own thoughts. Like you almost stew more because you don't have the same kind of outlets you used to have to even just to let that release valve off by like talking to somebody. If you get it off through anger and be able to yell at somebody, if you get it off through comedy, be able to laugh and joke with somebody. A lot of our release valves that have kept us from constantly exploding and constantly protesting, because we could be protesting every day, 365 days a week, 365 days a year, every hour of the day. There's enough just for Black issues alone. Don't throw in Latino issues. Like Black and brown people are getting discriminated against on so many different levels. We could be protesting all day, every day, but we don't, because we have different release valves. But I think when you quarantine and keep us locked in the house, we're only either with ourselves, our family, small groups of people, so we have less of those release valves. We don't have as many outlets to whether it's to have fun or just get things off, like gyms have been closed. Like there's so much pent up aggression in general. And then on top of that, when you see the people who are dying from COVID-19, it's like, why is it now that the numbers are coming out? It's like, yo, it's super disproportionately black people. And there's so many other reasons and underlying
Most black people who went to the, let me just insert this because I think a lot of people didn't realize this either. When they were doing all the numbers, it was chiefly because when black people were going to the emergency room or to the hospital saying that they weren't feeling well, because they didn't exhibit certain the normal symptoms of COVID, we were turned away. The way that, and there were a couple of medical professionals who noted that COVID shows up differently in Black people. On several different occasions, there were numerous Black people who had gone to the hospital on at least 3 different occasions and were turned away, ended up dying. And that's because they didn't have a cough or they didn't have a fever, but they had muscle pain. Like it was hard, like they weren't feeling right. And for us, you know, we know our bodies in a different type of way. You know, when just something just not feeling right and you tried everything that you know to try. And when they go to the hospital, they were being turned away. Say, oh, well, you don't have a fever or you're not coughing. But then days later, they die. And I think when you have issues like that and no one's really talking about that, no one other than Black medical professionals are sharing information like that to say, hey, if your muscles feel different, if it's showing up and you got tension in your body, you need to come to the hospital and you demand a test. That we were getting rejected for testing, right? And then when they did get enough, first we didn't have enough tests, right? So that's why they were picking and choosing who would have life or death. And then when we got the test, they would put the testing centers in places that were not easily accessible to people who didn't have transit. And a lot of the people who were dying from COVID were also considered essential workers, meaning they had to go to work no matter what. And they come back home to very dense communities like apartment complexes or things like that. And that is being passed on again. Not to add on the fact that most of those places also don't have quality water. They also have lead-infested buildings and paint. So adding all of the environmental factors on top of
air pollution. Shout out to I've noticed that. Shout out to Earth Justice and some of the work they're doing. I just saw a really cool interview with Michelle Mapson. She's a staff scientist with Earth Justice. Roland Martin, they were just talking about like air quality and lead and like the lead in waters, like how a lot of environmental factors have contributed to our communities being contributed to our communities and Black people already having a lot of these pre-existing conditions. Like there's this area down in Louisiana called the St. John's Parish that has like the highest per capita death rates, and they're like highest per capita death rates in the country because they have like a plastics factory and a lot of other terrible like air quality and like soil quality and water quality. And it's not a huge place, but people are dying there at a faster rate, at a higher per capita rate than anywhere in the country. And a lot of these stories aren't being told. We're just getting these big numbers, 100,000 plus. And it feels like, and then we got 45, Trump talking about it's a victory lap. Look, it would have been 1 million, 2 million if I hadn't done what I've done. It's like trying to spin it. And we're not done yet. And now I just saw another article yesterday, like 6 or 7 states are spiking, from California to Alabama, like are back spiking.
Well, you also notice the weather. It's June, right? Today, like pretty much June, right? This is like the last couple of days of May. But normally around this time, it's hot. It's hot. You know, like we out in the shorts and flip flops. You don't know how to dress. So when you also give an account for like climate change and the impacts that is having on the earth, I think quarantine actually did the earth a lot of good because we were off these roads for like, 90 days, give the ozone some time to like recuperate and to give itself a breath. But like, I think there are a number of different factors that contribute to health inequities in this country. And I think, and again, that all goes back also to systemic racism. It goes back to food quality, food access, healthcare access. It goes back to economic injustice, right? Racial wealth disparity in this country. The wealth gap in this country is astronomical. And when you look at the Black community as a whole, who has $1.3 trillion worth of spending power, but yet none of that money makes its way in circles throughout our communities, because it's our businesses who cannot get loans to open up brick and mortar businesses in our communities, right? The banks are sooner to give a liquor store, 3 or 4 liquor stores on the same street can get business licenses, right, and liquor licenses, but yeah, we can't get licenses for, community gardens or grocery stores or hardware stores or anything, paper stores.
And all these things are contributing to like just a lower level of health amongst our people.
Exactly. And also the racial gap also adds to the health impacts too, because stress is the number one killer of Black people. Stress leads to all the other.
We deal with a level of stress that's something I think that some people are coming around to, but they don't realize like the level of how Black people in general are just expected to still perform at higher levels just to get the same things that other people can perform at halfway. But the level of stress of being Black, and sometimes I feel like people like, oh, I don't want to hear that. I don't want to hear that. It's like, I don't care if you don't want to hear that. That's the real, because I kind of, and to kind of wrap the conversation up, but there's a show that just recently came out. Have you seen Black AF, Black as Fuck?
Oh yeah. Uh-huh.
I at first was a little, at first I thought it was funny. And it was by the second or third episode, I was like, oh, I love this show.
Yes.
First,
exactly.
I was hearing mixed reviews and so forth. But because of slavery, and there's 2 things I love. I love that every episode is a version of the phrase "because of slavery," and then they do that. They find some point like a little 2 or 3 minute breakdown and like dive deep into like how some issue that has happened in the show or some trauma or some issues like and they give like a whole montage on how this connects back to slavery. But something that I saw Kenya Barris talk in an interview afterwards, and it's like, why is every episode like called "Because of Slavery"? Some variation there. It's like because of slavery, still because of slavery. I know, but this is also because of slavery. And then he was like, slavery is 400 years. And then you got another 70 to 80 years of like between Reconstruction and Jim Crow laws. Like Black people been quote unquote free for less than 30, maybe 40 years out of 400, and this is still happening at this level. And it's like,
we really not free.
Exactly. So that level of trauma and stress that we're dealing with and that we've had to overcome and had to process is still very real. It's like, if you did something for 400 years and you only did something good for 30, it's like, 90+% of my trauma I'm still dealing with. That's still,
it's innate trauma.
20 to 40 generations, and you gave me 2 generations to try to get over it. But I want to thank you for joining tonight. Today.
Oh, thank you for having me. I love it. I love coming on, talking with you. It's always the best.
We can do a lot more of these. Like now, and if anything, now is like the time for this. Like this is a platform for truth, and this is a truth telling platform. I got a couple that's this week, and like I said, we've got some other new shows launching too that are going to be addressing various issues. But I mean, this is a moment I don't want to pass in terms of like the protests. Like I said, I felt very encouraged to see so many non-Black people. Like there was a whole couple cars with like Filipinos for Black Lives. So many white people who were, whether they were on the sidelines and on the roads, like clapping and holding their fist up, or so many people who were in their cars. Like I'm glad we have allies, but in the Black community, like we still need to be leading the charge. Like it feels like an all-on assault on us Trump has kind of had open season on Black people and Black bodies, and telling cops it's still okay to use force, and it's just
not even just force, but deadly force.
Deadly force still, like
deadly force.
Not trying to he's not trying.
Looting gonna lead to shooting. He said looting gonna lead to shooting. Really?
They start looting, we're gonna start shooting. Twitter, please deactivate.
Please deactivate Donald. That should be the new hashtag.
But, they scared because they were like, "Oh, we're gonna get regulated and overtaxed," and they're just scared of that. But
look, I think you just said it though. Like, this is the moment for truth telling. Like, I posted this the other day on Twitter. I was like, Twitter has become the official streets. Like, Twitter has become
to that point. It is, but it isn't, and that's what I don't want people to get it misconstrued. Is that just because you're on Twitter and tweeting something doesn't mean things are just going to happen. It can raise. Twitter is very powerful medium. Instagram. When I
say that though, I'm not talking about influencers. I'm talking about the way that we are becoming aware of information.
Oh,
right? Like, Twitter is the street.
I heard it in the streets. I heard it on Twitter.
That's how you know what's going on. It's the official street. Like, I don't know about you. I know you're from Ohio. I'm from Mississippi, but we trust the streets. When the streets get to talking, we get to walking. Like, that's how it works for us. Like,
we get to walking.
We get to walking. Like, so that is. Like, I am actually very proud of the fact that we do have a tool like that, because you can't really trust Facebook. Facebook is feeding us fake news every single day. And I take huge issue with that. I've been taking issue with that for a while, around the way that it keeps hammering us over and over again, hammer us over the head over and over again with our trauma. Like, it'll feed you articles from 3 and 4 and 5 and 6 years ago, just to see you react to it. You know what I mean? Like, to me,
just to try to keep you engaged.
No, there ain't about no engagement.
That's just because I'm gonna feed you this because I know.
That is you race baiting. That is Facebook race baiting. If you're talking about someone who fully funded the RNC in 2016,
and in 2020, I just saw it. They didn't pull out in 2020. You know
what I mean? And then you're going to double up, right? And then you're going to let Russia buy up all of this ad, sell all of our data to a third-party concern. Come on, young. That don't even make sense. Like, we out. That's out. That's it. Facebook, look, it is a great way. And until we find ourselves in a position to create our own technology that allows us to connect in a way that is earnest and respectful and doesn't misuse people and use them for their data, like, we're being treated as sequences in this country, and it blows the fuck out of me every single time I think about it. It's like you are a code. You are 00110000000001, and I think that's really messed up. But that is what we are living in this country. We are part of someone's algorithm. They determine what we see. They determine how we feel, and I think that is why I'm so proud of so many mental health professionals who have been stepping up in this moment as well and trying to provide resource for people who are being traumatized. This is trauma that we are living, and we are being forced to go back to work under very tense pretenses. And it's not that you want to be able to honor everybody's space and respect everybody else's space, but you also need time to process what it really means to be Black in this country. Because as I mentioned at the top of the show, it's not safe for us nowhere. Whether it's in our homes, at our churches, in our cars, going to the store. Like, it is, being Black here is a caution light, and we have to figure out how we move past that, and how we get to ourselves of a place of feeling safe again in this country. And unfortunately, it's going to call for personal accountability for the people who are out here. When I think about George Floyd, and I know you're trying to rap, but like, when I think about George Floyd and his murder, I think about the 3 officers who were present at the time, and 2 of them physically held Floyd down by his feet while what's his name? Derek Chauvin had his knee on his neck, and then the one cop of color served as lookout. Like, that's literally what happened. And it took me a minute because I had to process. I was like, what is going on here? Like, why is he on his neck? So, like, why is he, one, why is he on his neck? Period. Because I don't.
Exactly.
My aunt,
I'm not saying he
like,
should have knee on him at all, but why it got to be on his neck?
Was a police officer. She died in the line of duty. I have tremendous respect for officers in this country. That is not my issue. My issue, though, is those who choose to dishonor their badge and dishonor the blood that was shared by their colleagues. That to me is despicable. That to me deserves its own form of justice. And if you are surrounded by your colleagues, your quote unquote brothers in blue, and they sit there and they let you devalue and deface the very badge that you took an oath on to protect and serve the people of this country, then you all have done each other a disservice. Senator Harris actually said it earlier tonight. She said, the bad cops make it hard for the good cops. My aunt was a good cop. Not only was she a cop, but she also served in the United States Marines for 25 years. So she died serving this country. So I will always pay honor to those who do the same, but what I will never honor are people who choose to use their point of privilege, right? They hide behind the badge, they deface it, and they cause people to distrust the very institution that was supposed to be designed to protect them. And that, to me, my friend, is where I draw the line. So that's all I had to say, though, Cameron.
Can I just say amen?
It just boils my blood. It boils my blood. I think about my uncle.
It's not like this is the thing. I mean, we don't want to call police, but that's based off of like how often like we're mistreated. And if I feel like, to this day, I feel like if I call the police, I need to have all my ducks in a row. If somebody broke in my house, I'm gonna stand out here like this. This is my house.
It's almost like you need to hang your picture on the outside of the door so they know this is my house. So please do not kill me when I come answer the door.
Please.
Like,
Yeah. He's still here. Like Dave Chappelle, this is like 20 years ago, one of his first stand-up comedy specials, Kill 'Em Softly. And it's funny because it's not funny, but it's funny because it's so true. He has a joke in there. He was like, cop. He's like, we want to call the police too. He's like, but then they show up to your house like, oh, hit you. And he's like, if I call the cops, he's like, no. He's like, no, because he's like, my house is too nice. He's like, it's not a super nice house, but they won't believe I live here. They'll come in swinging. And then when that gets shot accidentally, it's like, oh, just sprinkle some crack on them and we'll write up the report. Like, you know what I mean? Like, they'll just find a way to do it. So we hope they don't get away with this one. I hope there's justice is served. I hope people are safe in these streets. I'm never going to tell people to not protest. And protest.
You know you stopped recording, right?
What?
You stopped recording. Oh, you are still recording.
I'm recording.
Oh, I thought you had stopped. Because I didn't see it up there once I started drinking.
Nobody know what that is. But and I'm recording audio on a separate. This is getting recorded audio for the podcast. But
okay.
I just want to thank you. Thank you for your perspective. Thank you for the work you're doing. How can people get in contact with you and your new show?
Thank you. So folks who are interested in connecting with me, they can definitely follow me on Twitter at WJS Clanton on Twitter. For those of you who are looking to connect with me on Instagram, you can follow me at Politically Sassy. That's POLICALLYSASSY. That is my web show for women. That is where we share and we talk about women's roles in politics and all the other juicy stuff like fashion and culture and all the other good things, but mostly politics though, because that's kind of my thing. So
on our network, I'm publicly pressing you.
Yes. We are going to be joining the Hip Politics family very soon. So y'all be on the lookout for that. That's going to be amazing for sure.
But well, thank you for joining. Thank you for keeping me informed and for riding out on the protest today. I hear it's getting really crazy at the White House in downtown DC, as like I said, videos all around the country from Chicago to Minneapolis to New York to Houston. I wish I'm a praying man, so I'm praying for everybody's safety, that people can make it home tonight. We don't need any more loss of life, but we do need to show force and we need to stand up. Like, people are going to protest, and sorry, everybody's protest is not going to fit into a nice little box and be that you wanted to. I hope also considering what's going on with coronavirus and COVID-19, I know it's hard to protest and be socially distant. So I really hope people are using their masks and trying to stay safe, because the corona is very real. COVID is very, 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 very
It
real.
is very real, and it does not discriminate. So
Exactly. Well, it does. Well, America discriminates, hence COVID is discriminating.
America discriminates.
So, and unfortunately, our people are being affected by that more than everyone else. But I just this is your boy, Mr. Cameron Calvin. I'm at Mr. Cameron Calvin on all socials. You can follow Hip Politics on Instagram, hip_politics. The Hip Politics Podcast is everywhere. Hip Politics Podcast on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook. And make sure you, like I said, we've launched some new merch. You can follow it at hippoliticspodcast.com. I've actually been writing a couple more op-eds, so I just dropped an op-ed not too long ago. And I'm coming out with another one on Monday. So you can find all of our news and kind of one-stop shop on hippolitics.org. We got some major announcements. We got some new shows coming out, The Connects. We just soft launched Here Comes the Pain podcast with Joel Payne, a political strategist and TV political commentator. Got a couple others coming to the network, so got a big rollout in a few weeks. But until then, you're gonna have to deal with me. Sorry, we kind of did this on the fly, so I'm without my co-pilot, Mr. Michael McQuarrie, aka the Mayor of Capitol Hill. But he's still in the cut. He's there. We got another episode coming out next week that we recorded. Season 2 is coming to an end. Season 2 finale is going to feature TK Kirkland, famed hip hop comedian, and the first ever stand-up comedian I ever saw live. But we got a great interview coming up with him soon. But this was needed. And this week I got a few other episodes and shows that we're going to be doing, because people need to talk and they need to hear this, and we need to get some of this frustration out. We need some solutions. So thank you for not just expressing the pain, but expressing some solutions. This has been another episode of the Hip Politics Podcast, and like that, we are out. Peace.
Hip politics, baby.